Welcome to all, and today's topic is principle of art. And these principles are balance, rhythm, contrast, movement, pattern, emphasis, and unity. Art painting is incomplete without these principles of design that are balance, unity, variety, emphasis, movement, pattern, proportion. The principles of art represent how the artist uses the elements of art to create an effect and to help convey the artist's intent. These principles are possibly the closest thing we have to a set of objective criteria for analyzing and judging art. Pattern is the uniform repetition of any of the elements of art or any combination thereof. Anything can be turned into a pattern through repetition. Some classic patterns are spiral, grid, weave. Pattern is very important design concept which refers to the visual arrangement of elements with a repetitive form or intelligible sequence. Here are some images related to the pattern. Patterns can refer to repetition of design elements as seen in the things like wallpaper patterns. They can also refer to set standards for how certain elements are designed, such as top navigation. Contrast is everything in art. Without it, an artwork would be nothing but a blank surface. Contrast can come in many forms. Texture contrast, a contrast between smooth and textured. Many of Vincent van Gogh's paintings are great examples of texture contrast in action. Shape contrast, a contrast between different shapes, rectangles and circles. Contrast is a principle of design that emphasizes differences between the art elements, opposites, dark and light values, vertical and horizontal lines, rough and smooth textures, warm and cool colors, geometric and organic shapes. Color contrast between light and dark, saturated and dull or complementary colors, hue contrast. Detail contrast, a contrast between areas of detail and more bland areas. Interval contrast, a contrast between long and short intervals. The interval contrast can be used to create a sense of rhythm in your artwork. Contrast means difference, creating difference between your subject and everything else. You are able to tell a story. This can be achieved using the differences in color and luminance, but also using shapes, textures, and more. Harmony is a bit vague compared to some of the other principles. Generally speaking, it refers to how well all the visual elements work together in a work of art. Elements which are in harmony should have some kind of logical progression or relationship. If there is an element which is not in harmony with the rest of an artwork, it should stick out and be daring to look at, kind of like an off note in a song. You will usually be able to tell just from judgment if all the elements are in harmony, it will just look right. However, if the painting looks off, then it can be difficult to tell if that is because there is no harmony between the elements of if there is some other issue. When I think of harmony, I think of the peaceful arrangement of the colors in Monet's series of water lilies. Harmony refers to a way of combining similarities. Visual harmony is achieved when all the art elements within a work of art blend together on a pleasant, comprehensive, and unified whole. A harmonious work of art might use only organic or only geometric shapes and lines to create a unified composition. Using all cool or all warm color would help to produce a harmonious work of art. Shapes create harmony when related shapes of various sizes are repeated. Color creates harmony when a work is limited to only cool or warm colors. Lines creates harmony by limiting lines to either straight or curved lines. Unity refers to some kind of the connection between all the visual elements in a work of art. Like harmony, this is a bit of vacuum term which is difficult to objectively use to analyze art. The painting below demonstrates a strong sense of unity through the use of similar hues used throughout the painting. Even though there is a strong contrast between the light and dark areas, there is a sense of unity created through the use of similar hues. Dark yellows, oranges, and greens are used in the foreground, and light yellow, oranges, and greens are used in the background. Unity, the design principle of unity is the relationship among the elements of visual that helps all the elements functions together. Unity gives a sense of oneness to a visual image. Unity. This principle refers to the visual quality of wholeness or oneness that is achieved through effective use of the elements of art and principle of design. Variety refers to the use of different qualities or instances of the visual elements. Variety can be used to break up monotonous or repetitive areas. Below is the painting with a lot of variation in color, shape, and texture, yet not so much that it loses any sense of harmony. Variety is achieved when the art elements are combined in various ways to increase visual interest. For instance, an assortment of shapes that are of variety of sizes attracts more attention than an assortment of shapes all the same size. Variety is a way of combining elements in involved ways to create intricate and complicated relationships. Variety is accomplished by using different lines, shapes, and colors within an artwork to make key areas stand out. Movement. Your paint cannot physically move, but you can arrange the paint in a way which gives the illusion or suggestion of movement. One of the most effective techniques for creating movement in your painting is to use bold and directional brush work. By doing this, you can suggestively push your viewer around the painting as you please. You could also suggest movement through repetition or pattern. Below are two examples of the painting which demonstrate a great sense of movement. Movement is used to convey feelings and ideas. It can be comforting and predictable, or it can be monotonous, symbolic, or graceful. Visual movement is the principle of art that is used to create the look and feeling of action and guide the viewer's eyes throughout the work of art. Movement is the design principle that uses some of the elements of the art to produce action, to achieve the look of action, literal, actual movement, or to cause the viewer's eyes to sweep over the artwork in a certain manner. We call it compositional movement. Proportion. Proportion concerns the relationship between the sizes of different art in an artwork. For example, the width compared to the length, the area of the sky compared to the land, or the area of the foreground compared to the background. Some proportions are considered to be visually pleasing, such as the rule of thirds and the golden ratio. Proportion means that you make the parts fit well with each other. Proportion in art is the relationship between two or more elements. When we talk about proportion in art, we are comparing the size of one object in the artwork to the size of another related object in the artwork. Proportion is usually not even noticed until something is out of proportion. For example, if a person has a head larger than his entire body, then we would say that he is out of proportion. Proportion is the principle of art concerned with the size relationship of one part to another. The size of an object by itself has no meaning unless we can compare it with something else. Proportion is a measurement of the size and quantity of the elements within a composition. Scale. Scale refers to the size of an object compared to the rest of the surrounding. For example, the size of a man compared to the tree he is sitting under, or the size of the mountain compared to the clouds. Scale is different to proportion in that scale refers to the size of an entire object, whereas proportion refers to the relative size of parts of an object. For example, the scale of a man relative to the rest of the painting may be correct, but the proportion might be wrong because his hands are too large. Scale refers to the size as measured against a standard reference, such as the human body. Two types of scale to consider. One is the scale of the work itself, and the other is the scale of objects or elements in the design. Balance in art refers to the use of artistic elements such as line, texture, color, and form in the creation of artworks in a way that renders visual stability. Balance is one of the principles of organization of structural elements of art and design, along with unity, proportion, emphasis, and rhythm. Now, let us talk about two types of balances: symmetrical balance and asymmetrical balance. Asymmetrical balance is when you have two dissimilar sides of the design and have positioned visual weight unequally, and yet you have still achieved a sense of balance. It evokes a sense of modernism and movement. Whereas symmetrical balance, on the other hand, is when you have two identical sides of a design with equal weight on either side of a central point of axis. It evokes a sense of formality and structure. Symmetrical balance occurs when you have two identical sides of the design with the central point of axis. So if you cut the design in half, the left and right are mirror images of each other. To be considered perfectly symmetrical, a design needs to have equally weighted visuals on either side. Asymmetrical balance occurs when you have a different visual images on either side of a design and yet the image still seems balanced. To be considered asymmetrical, a design needs to have unequal visual weight on the either side, but those unequal visuals need to balance each other. Let's take a look at one of the most famous buildings in the world, the Taj Mahal. While there are numerous reasons the Taj Mahal is aesthetically pleasing, one reason is its symmetrical balance, which evokes a sense of traditionalism and stability. Now let's take a look at another famous piece of artwork, the Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. This painting, unlike the Taj Mahal, is asymmetrical in nature and yet is still balanced and strategic in design. Looking at the Taj Mahal and the Starry Night, you can see the profound beauty of both type of balance in design. But for the purposes of everyday design, which one should you use? What's the real difference? Here we will define a symmetrical and symmetrical balance and compare the two, so you can choose properly for your own creative purposes. So balance refers to the visual weight or achievement of equilibrium within the work of art. And as you know, there are three types of balance: symmetrical, asymmetrical, and radial. Radial balance is where the art elements branch or radiate out from a central point. Emphasis is a principle of art which occurs any time any element of a piece is given dominance by the artist. In other words, the artist makes part of the work stand out in order to draw the viewer's eye there first. Emphasis is used in art to attract the viewer's attention to a particular area or object. This is typically the focal point or main subject of the artwork. For instance, in a portrait painting, the artist usually wants you to see the person's face first. They will use techniques such as color, contrast, and placement to make sure that this area is where your eye is attracted to first. Any piece of art may have more than one area of emphasis. One typically dominates over all others. If two or more are given equal importance, your eye does not know how to interpret it. Emphasis is used to direct and focus attention on the most important parts of the composition. I hope this video clarifies to you what the principles of art are and how you can use them to help understand and communicate your thoughts about art. It is also important to understand that a great painting does not have to tick all the boxes in the terms of the principles of art. Most of the great painting will only demonstrate a few of the principles. So do not think of the principles of art as a set of overarching rules which you must comply with. They are merely a way to help us understand and communicate our thoughts about art. The principles of art allow us to place some kind of the objective reasoning behind why a great painting is great. This is important as it keeps us from falling into a vague space where art is no longer able to be defined or critiqued. Thank you. That's all related to the principle of art. Thank you.